and key roles in really a countless list of endeavors. I'm going to list a few. Juneteenth, which is happening right now and has happened for the last number of years. She's on the East Topeka Senior Center Board of Directors. She's on the supervising committee of the Northeast Kansas Credit Union. She started the Fresh Cut to Fresh Start program, which is at her church's back to school fair and is a program that lines up free haircuts for kids before they go back to school. It's huge. And she also lines up people like our local costume master, Rodney Harmon, Grace Med, the Kansas Children's Discovery Center, and more for booths there. She does a lot of events, and if you want to know who's got the best music and the best DJs in town, check with Lisa. She also has organized a prom boutique for high school girls. And when Flint, Michigan was in trouble, she worked together in the community and raised over 25,000 bottles of water to send to people in Flint. Today, she's also involved in Topeka United, a movement. She's a working group member and a partner pair in the class of 2021, which is our first 9-month Mosaic Partner Pair program. Lisa's faith inspires her and sustains her and all of us. And with that, Lisa.
Thank you, Karen, and good evening. Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to come to you in prayer. As our council members plan their actions, please guide their steps. Thank you for all the blessing and kindness you have shown to Topeka and its residents. When opinions differ, give them a spirit of unity so they may work as a unified team. Direct their thoughts, their works, decisions, and actions to make the best decisions for all Topeka residents. Bless the work of their hands. We thank you for what you will do in and through our community. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right.
We go to the roll call.
Mayor De La Isla?
Here.
Council members Hiller?
Here.
Valdivia Acala?
Here.
Ortiz? Emerson?
Here.
Padilla?
Here.
Nager?
Sure.
Yeah, that's interesting that we don't see.
Dobler?
I don't think something.
Duncan?
Here. I feel like
And Lesser?
Here.
Guys, we can't see the Zoom on the broadcast.
We have 9 present.
Thank you very much. We're checking into our Zoom capabilities to ensure that the council members that are either in the office or at home are able to participate.
I have it on the new Tech Indie Night video. or
Okay,
do
it
you
seems
need
like they're
to change
here.
the webcam?
With this, Deputy Mayor, would you join me up front?
And do you guys have the mic for the mayor? The handheld mic? 1 second. 1 second, Michelle.
It's on. I think I heard it. There we go. And for you interns, just so you can see that technical difficulties happen everywhere, just roll with it. All right, now back to our scheduled program. Mr. Jim Parrish, could you please join us? So typically, I'm gonna take a second here to just acknowledge this spectacular individual. I want to be Jim when I grow up because Jim has a heart of gold. This is a man that not only has been a partner in this community and somebody that has believed in Topeka, invested in Topeka, but most importantly, has taken of his time, not only to invest in growing businesses in Topeka, but also to give back to our community. And he does it in a plethora of ways. Many people know him when they go to Dornwood. He loves baseball. Most importantly, he loves to invest in our youth so that our youth have opportunities. Jim is always saying yes to our community. Something that few people know is that when we were in the midst of the pandemic and we started to have either doctors or police officers or firefighters or anybody that needed a place to stay, I got a call. I didn't call Jim. I got a call from Jim saying, hey, Michelle, let me know what we can do for you. The Ramada is always going to be there for those individuals that are helping in our community and keeping our community afloat. This is the character of Jim Parrish. And I wish his wife, Nancy, would be here, but for professional reasons, she's a judge. She is not able to be here, but I'm sure that she's watching from home. We know that this is not just Jim, it's Jim and Nancy who have a heart of gold. But today, I do have a certificate, but rather than just reading a certificate that doesn't have the emotion of the appreciation that we have for you, I want to have Mike talk a little bit about the other great things that you do in our community that many people don't know.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about Jim's character. He doesn't wait to be asked. He always steps forward, and he does it in a way that is quiet, unassuming, with no expectation of a pat on the back or any reward, which is, I think, the thing that stands out about Mr. Parrish most of all. And he puts himself wholeheartedly into supporting youth programs, and he has been a mainstay in this community for as long as I can remember. I don't want to age both of us, but it's been a while. And just the hotel that he runs and maintains has become, for me, a landmark in this community. I have always considered his hotel as Topeka's hotel, because I don't know how many conferences we have gone to there, how many visiting groups have come to Topeka as the prime place to hold their conferences, because it is in the heart of the city, downtown, and he just welcomes everyone with an open heart. The things that he does for tonight that I want to talk a little bit about is that we all have heard the requests to grow a more diverse recruit academy in our Topeka Police Department. Well, I'm here to tell you they've been doing this for a number of years already. Some representatives from the department are here tonight, Chief Wheelis, Sergeant Vidal Campos, and Lieutenant Badel. They all work in that training section in the department, and they've really been creative in how they're bringing young talent to Topeka, but in a way that's very different, and I think has set a standard across the country. They sell Topeka, and then they show them how being a police officer in this great town could be their career choice. And helping them behind the scenes is Mr. Parrish. He has provided support and lodging, as the mayor has talked about, for other first responders needed assistance and needed a place to go to keep their families safe and keep them safe. He has provided lodging and a direction that I think should tell the interns that we have here with us this evening what kind of a community this is, what kind of a giving community this is. It is not just the police responsibility to bring new talent. Somebody like Mr. Parrish steps up and shows how a well-respected citizen in the community can contribute in that effort as well. And so I could go on and on about the things that I remember about the Ramada Inn, the events that I've gone to at the Ramada Inn, and the things that I'm looking forward to at the Ramada Inn. You and I had a talk about that. There are some things yet to come, I believe. And so it is really humbling to be able to stand here with him and call him my friend. And I really believe that this recognition is way overdue. And again, I know it's something that he would have never expected. I think when I sprung it on him, he was a little surprised. And I'm so glad that he was able to be here with us tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, Jim, we have a certificate here that says, Jim Parrish, it's my pleasure to extend our appreciation for your invaluable contributions to the City of Topeka Police Department internship program. It gives the city great pride to know that companies like yours recognize it is necessary to show support to the future leaders of our world. The compassion, kindness, and generosity that you and your team at the Ramada have provided for an opportunity for our interns to change the makeup of the workforce for years to come. Your contributions to the Topeka Police Department internship program is an inspiration to us all. If the world becomes a better place tomorrow, it will happen because of companies like yours, and I may add, people like you, and your passion and conviction to support the youth of today. So, Jim, when I got elected, I made only 50 challenge coins that were given out and have been given out throughout these last 4 years to a few individuals. The front of it has a painting done by one of our local artists. And then in the back of it, it has the seal of the city of Topeka. This is a military tradition, and I learned how to do this right. So if you could please shake my hand. Sir, thank you for your accomplishments in our community, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. Well, this maybe, I so much appreciate this, and you've overstated most of it, so I'll apologize for that. Just a moment to acknowledge the service of the members of the Topeka Police Department, the Fire Department, all the first responders who do things that a lot of us don't have any idea that goes on in this community and every community. And so I want to thank you for helping keep us safe, keeping our property safe, and keeping our city a welcoming place for people to come. And to each member of the council, public service is often taken for granted as people view your roles in what you do. Coming here every week to have these meetings and hard decisions are made, that public service is a huge price, and I want to express my appreciation to the members of the council for that. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Actually, I wanted to, since I'm going to go off script for a second, could the interns of the city come up? You want to talk about diversity. I love the fact that I want our community that's watching right now from home to take a look at these individuals that are now working for our city. So if you guys can all come up here. I was just like, wow, I just love this group. They were all outside talking. You could just feel the energy when you walked up the stairs. So really, really quick, I want you guys to say where you're from, your name, and where you're going to be at.
I'm from Cheney, Kansas. I'm Clay Robinson.
I'm Deontay Harris, and I'm from Daphne, Alabama.
I'm Sammy Hughes, and I'm from Effingham, Kansas.
I'm Rachel Hahn, and I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
I'm Jonathan Dunn. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
I'm Tatiana Broughton, and I'm from Moss Point, Mississippi.
I'm Addison Falls. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
I'm Princess Brashears. I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana.
I'm Juan Carlos Colegio. I'm from McAllen, Texas.
I'm Jesse Summer, and I'm from Topeka, Kansas.
Yeah. Please, a big round of applause for these young individuals that are going to be working our police department. And please clap really loud so that they make this home. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, wait, no, wait. Hold on. Thanks. Oh, it didn't pop up. There we go. Okay, we're good. All right, thanks.
All right. Appointments.
Item 2A is a board appointment recommending the reappointment of John Dietrich to the Washburn University Board of Regents for a term ending July 1st, 2025. Item B is a board appointment recommending the appointment of Nicole Carr to the Shawnee County Juvenile Corrections Advisory Board for an unexpired term ending July 12, 2024.
All right, we have heard the appointments. What is the pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Hiller moves for approval. Do we have a second? We have a second by Councilman Lesser. Any comments, questions, or discussions with regard to these appointments? Are we going to be able to see our council members that are on Zoom?
Yeah, we got it fixed.
Okay.
She wants to be able to see them, Molly.
No, it should pop up on the screen.
Okay, it's okay. All right, so if there's no comments or questions, we proceed by voting.
Put the council members on the screen.
Council members Emerson,
On the
Yes.
TVs up here.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Which one or two? I've got it on component one.
She's thinking really hard.
It's no reflection on you guys.
I don't know, John, maybe not.
No.
Taylor's out sick, just can't have.
There we
him.
go. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Still, she said yes, I saw her say yes.
Dope.
It's gonna be on mute all day, but.
In some countries, that's actually
Councilmember Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
and Ortiz.
She said yes.
We saw it.
Okay, we have 8 yes.
8 having voted yes, the motion carries. I would like to recognize Officer Carr, who was dying to come and speak with you. Just kidding. I asked if she would like to say something, and she's like, no, please, you don't have to do that. And then also, we have here with us John Dietrich and his wife, Christina Dietrich. John, please, if you could rise. John has recently been appointed to the Board of Regents of Washburn University. It's just wonderful, like we always say when we have volunteers from our community. Thank you for your service to our community, for your volunteerism, and for ensuring that our system keeps working correctly. It's only when we have good people like you guys step up, so we appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Appreciate it.
We now move on to presentations.
Presentation is City of Topeka 2020 year-end audit.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to introduce our Financial Administrative Services Director, Jessica Lemondola, to make a couple comments and then introduce our guests.
Thank you. It's fine for now. I'm not going to play with it. Good evening. So once again, we're excited to introduce this year's annual audit. I just want to highlight the difficult situations, the difficult year that the financial staff has found themselves under. For any organization moving from being fully present 40, 50, 60 hours a week to being almost completely remote, we have a very small department. So any 1 or 2 people that were to have gotten sick would have definitely impacted our operations. So I just wanted to highlight the dedication that our finance team has shown this year. What we can see in this audit is a really great year for the city, not only with the finance team, but throughout the city. Employees took to heart that the year was going to be difficult and that we needed to be as financially responsible as possible in the event. Luckily, so far, we have not seen in the event. So we're looking forward to 2021 and being able to pick up at the pace of spending so that we can address the infrastructure needs and amongst a variety of other needs.
So tonight, I want to introduce Kristen Hughes. She's from RSM. She is part of the team that is our outside auditors. This will be the second audit review that they've done of the city. So it's the second time is always a little easier on both our staff and their staff as you get to know each other. But I also want to thank them for their dedication. They also went through the same struggles that we did, fully in person to fully remote. And I really feel like overall we didn't miss a beat. So I'll hand it over to Kristen. But to the finance staff, thank you. They really accomplished a great feat.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. As Jessica mentioned, this is our second year doing the audit. I know last year I had to present over Zoom, so it's nice to be here in person with you all this evening. I'm going to go through, I know you've already been provided with copies of what we call the deliverables. The large bound document is the comprehensive annual financial report, which is the audited financial statements. A lot of information in that, so we are going to go through a summary. I'll certainly welcome questions at the end. The other document you have, the other bound item is the compliance report, and I'll touch upon that, what information is included in there. And then the last, I believe it's the stapled packet. That's what's referred to as the auditor communications. So at the conclusion of every audit, there are certain topics that we are required to communicate back to you at the conclusion of the project. So I will highlight those as well. So hopefully, let's see how do I advance? Am I sharing my screen? Okay, I am. Sorry, space bar or no?
Pop it into the full screen.
Oh, sure. That works. Sorry. All right, thank you. There we go. So here, this is summarizing revenue for all the governmental funds current year. 2020, obviously, on the left side there, compared to the prior year. So this shows the significant revenue categories that is recognized in the governmental funds. You will see in the current year that revenue went up about 10.3 million or 6%. Most of that is going to be seen in the red bar, that's intergovernmental revenue. And the majority of that is going to be due to the CARES funds that the city received this year. The primary piece being through Shawnee County, and then we'll go through a little bit. There were certain other grants that received what was called supplemental funding from granting agencies through existing funds. So a lot of your revenue categories were consistent year over year, and you'll see that was really the primary driver, as I'm sure you all have talked through, as far as the receipt of those funds and how those were spent. This slide represents expenditures by function, again, in the governmental funds. So this is going to be all the governmental funds combined. You will see in the current year, 182 million compared to 203 in the prior year. So that was a decrease of about 21.3 million or 10%. You know, Jessica already alluded to certainly a very conscious effort during 2020 to reduce expenditures compared to the prior year with a lot of unknowns out there. Specifically, two of the categories that decreased, you'll see in the purple, which is debt service. Part of the reason that decreased this year was just fiscal year 19 saw some significant refundings that occurred, which will increase, obviously, your debt service payments as those refunding payments are made. Another area that saw a noticeable decrease was public works in the current year. This pie chart represents the general fund. So fund balance, as you know, is the term really for equity in the governmental funds. So there's 5 classifications, which that is presented as defined by the GASB. You'll see most of yours represents is unassigned, meaning it can be spent at the city's discretion in the operating fund. The other category examples, restricted, for example, means a third party has put a restriction on how funds have to be spent. Committed is those pieces that council has earmarked. And then assigned is the pieces that management or department heads have a discretion over. So again, at that point of December 31st, 2020, you'll see most in the general fund does sit in the unassigned category. Here I have operating results for the enterprise funds. So as a reminder, these are going to be the funds that function. They're considered business type in nature. So this will include your water, stormwater, wastewater, pollution, parking, etc. So we show a little bit of a different perspective here. Again, these are called business type because these are the funds where you are allowed to establish the rates, and obviously those rates are established with the intention to cover the operating costs to provide these services to residents. So this is the aggregate effect of all those funds together, but you can see operating revenue was pretty consistent in the current year compared to prior year with a slight increase. Operating expenses actually went down a little bit in the current year. The third category, the reason we highlight depreciation expense, it averages about 17 million the last couple of years, but we highlight that just because it's a non-cash expenditure. So while it's a significant piece in the enterprise fund, it doesn't represent a cash cost. It's simply the amortization. So in the fourth category there, that's highlighting what the operating income was, excluding that depreciation piece, because again, it's non-cash. And then your enterprise funds, again, because of the business nature, are the only funds that present an actual cash flow statement, similar to what you would see in a private industry. So the category we've noted here is cash flows from operations, meaning the cash that is generated from the operating revenue is sufficient to cover the cash that goes out for operating expenses. So here, as I mentioned, there's also required communications that we're going to go through. So the first item here, this is represented in the financial statements, but we issued at the conclusion of our audit, we issue an audit opinion. The formal term under AICPA standards is unmodified, also more commonly known as a clean opinion, which is the highest level of opinion we as auditors can issue, meaning the financials are presented in accordance with GAAP as required. We'll highlight this second bullet point is just to show if there was any new GASB standards that you were required to implement and if those had a significant change or not. On the prior year, there was a new one. It was specific to fiduciary activities. So there are certain areas where you all collect funds in what's considered a custodial or fiduciary capacity for the benefit of others. And there was just some modifications on how that information is shown in the financials. The third bullet point here, this is just to remind you there are certain areas within the financials that does involve a management estimate or subjectivity. As a part of the audit, we do take a look at those. We make sure they follow or are consistent with the city's policies in those areas. Also, it's consistent with what we would expect to see of other entities similar to you. So primary examples are going to be your net pension liabilities, for example, your participation in capers. Those are estimates. You know, they're going through and actuaries are determining what are expected future benefit costs for retirees many years down the road. And so there's a lot of significant estimates that go into that. And as I noted, we do take a look at that as part of the process. Audit adjustments, there were just a couple audit adjustments identified in the current year specific to, and you will see those summarized in the packet. The city obviously does a lot of debt transactions during the year, so there was just a couple of adjustments we identified. So all that simply means is the original trial balance we were provided at the course of the audit, an adjustment was identified through the course of the work that has been included in the final audit product. Uncorrected misstatements. We also are required to summarize these. So similar, except they are really immaterial items that are noted. So again, an audit adjustment that may have come up during the audit, but management concluded they were immaterial to the financials and didn't need to be recorded. And we concluded with that assumption or that conclusion. And so you'll just see those summarized in the deliverable versus recorded in the financial statements. The next couple bullet points, we are just required to communicate if any disagreements or difficulties came up in the course of the audit. Those would be required to be discussed with you. There were none. Future accounting pronouncements, the GASB and the FASB, both worlds out there are always issuing new standards that may or may not have an impact on financial reporting in the future. So this is just to let you know there is a disclosure in the report for upcoming standards, and management obviously evaluates those as to whether or not they are expected to impact the financials going forward. The GFOA submission, we like to highlight this. This is, you know, Jessica, when she certainly alluded to the hard work by the finance department. It is a lot of work to prepare the audited financials. The audit is a lot of work. It is a really long process. You know, we come in and start our planning usually in the December, January timeframe. The department uses a couple months to close all the books, get things ready. We have shown up late March. Field work is usually 4 weeks, and then it takes the better part of another month. And so it really is a long process. The GFOA submission, this is not a requirement, but the city has historically submitted its financials. So you'll see in the report the Certificate of Excellence Award that was issued on your 2019 financial statements. And I'm sure if not already, they will be submitting the 2020 financials for that same award. You know, when I say it's not required, there are additional, they have a very thorough checklist of additional information that is included to qualify for that. You know, we receive feedback that it's viewed favorably by bond rating agencies, for example, because again, it's just increased efforts for financial transparency in the disclosures that you're choosing to include in your report. The compliance report that I mentioned, which is the smaller document. So as a reminder, you know, in an audit, our responsibility is not to give an opinion on internal controls. We give the opinion on the financial statements, but we are required, if we become aware of any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in controls, that those are communicated to you. So you will see just one significant deficiency noted. It was really related to the audit adjustments I alluded to earlier. So, when we think about deficiencies, again, we are required to evaluate adjustments, and if those had not been made, would the financials have looked significantly different with or without those adjustments? The couple that were in the debt area were considered to be significant, and that's why you'll see that reported. But, I would clarify there are differences between that and some of the areas we look at, such as cash receipts, disbursements, and pervasively occurring throughout the year. So this one was pretty specific to a financial reporting entry. We know we've obviously gone through that, as Jessica mentioned. They have, when you think of the number of transactions processed at a city of this size throughout the year, while I certainly want to emphasize the importance of it, in the grand scheme of the picture again of how many transactions are processed, I would just kind of put that in perspective for you. The compliance report, so as a reminder, anytime an entity expends more than $750,000 in federal grant expenditures, we are required to perform a single audit or a compliance audit, and that's what you also see summarized in that smaller bound document. So the city had about $14.5 million in federal expenditures this year. We audited 2 major programs or 2 grant areas. The CARES was certainly one of them, but really most all entities, because of the size of the amounts and they've never been audited before, they're pretty much by default considered just a high-risk grant because it was new to everyone. So we audited the CARES expenditures that you had. As a reminder, similar to the financial statement audit, we do a sample. We select a sample of transactions. We noted no instances of non-compliance or deficiencies. So you'll see in that report that we communicate that while there is the potential for deficiencies out there, none were identified in the course of our testing. The second major program we tested was your CDBG funding. So similar, we go through and perform testing specific to that grant, and no instances of non-compliance were noted. That, I know that's pretty quick, but like I said, these are large documents and it's a long process. So hopefully I kind of hit upon the highlights, but I'm happy to go through any questions you have on the documents you've seen or the audit process itself.
Thank you so much. Every year I say the same thing, but to me it's such an exciting process to go through the audit. When they talk about testing, for those of you watching at home, what they literally do is that they'll almost close their eyes and pick a set of transactions, and then we have to show that we have followed the documentation process that we have outlined in our policies and procedures, and that there is no way that there can be misuse of the funds that we're receiving in the city. So if you want to talk about transparency in the way that we do business, it's one thing for us to have open data. It's another thing to have a second set of eyes that has nothing to do with the city, review everything that we do, spot test, because they can't look at every single transaction, and be able to give the community back a report talking about how clean our financial statements are. So that's a huge deal. It talks about the leadership in the city of our finance department that is amazing. And the fact that this body is doing its job by making sure that we are all taking a look at what's happening. So, comments or questions for our auditor? Councilman Duncan.
I just had a question about last year's, this audit, but on page 8 and 9, it reviews what the corrections that needed made from last year's audit. And it says what the corrective action was. I guess my question is that do you folks, as part of the process, do you verify that corrective action was actually taken?
So
I'm not trying to throw us down, but I just want to know if that's part of the process to verify that those changes were made.
That's a good question. So you're right. Required reporting is that, so last year, when this finding was reported, the city had to prepare a corrective action plan to say, here's what we're going to do. And then they are required, fast forward to the next year, to prepare this summary of prior year findings to say, do we think we corrected it? We do, as a part of the audit, certainly take that into consideration. We put it into what we call our planned audit approach to say, do we agree with management's conclusion that it was effectively implemented? As the mayor alluded to, we're looking at a sample. So yes, we didn't see any repeat findings. Our report would explicitly say if there was a repeat finding, meaning this happened last year and it happened again this year. So you're correct, we did not report a similar finding. So we do certainly take a look at that. Like I said, some of it, especially when it comes to adjustments, whether or not we picked a similar transaction, but that's a fair statement that we did not see a repeat issue, which means management addressed it as part of their closing process this year.
Great, thank you.
Other questions or comments? City Manager?
Mayor, I just asked that if Jessica could come up and sum up from the report, please.
No,
not a lot of space.
I know.
Thanks, Kristen. So in summary, I think after you go through the several hundred-page document, if you have questions, the finance staff is always available to help explain. While I thanked the entire team, I wanted to actually point out two individuals that lead the audit effort. So Rochelle Matthews is here. She's in the back. She leads our day-to-day accounting operations. So she's critical throughout the year to ensure the accuracy of entries and such, but I'm sure a lot of you have had interactions with her. So Rochelle and her team are very good at their job. So any questions, please let them know. And then I also have Simon Martinez here, who is our accounting manager for reporting. Simon, you want to wave your hand? Okay. Simon bears the brunt of the audit prep once it comes out of our individual accountants. And he also does this along with all of the quarterly and monthly reporting, along with economic development. So from about March until now, he is very focused on reporting. And he also was recently married over the weekend, so he did all of this in preparation for that. So I just want to, sorry, Simon, but just want to thank them both. They're part of an excellent team. So.
Thank you so much, Simon and Rochelle, and to the whole finance team for your great work to our community. I know that sometimes we ask a lot of questions on how we're managing community finances. This is where the pudding is really at. Our city is being run very well. That being said, if there's no other comments or questions, we move on to the consent agenda.
Item 4A is an ordinance introduced by City Manager Brent Trout, allowing and approving city expenditures for the period March 27, 2021 through April 30th, 2021, and enumerating said expenditures therein. Item B is minutes of the regular meeting of June 8th, 2021, and item C are the applications. A list of applications was distributed, and staff recommends approval.
We have heard the consent agenda. What is the pleasure of the governing body? We have a motion for approval by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala, a second by Councilman Emerson. Comments or questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, we proceed by voting.
Council members Padilla,
Yes.
Nager, Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
They just did. They should be able to talk now.
Try talking. Thank you.
and Lesser,
I just switched the audio to same as output, and it's still not working.
continue.
After the vote, we'll go into a...
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
So wait.
Does that look right?
She's thumbs up.
and Emerson.
Yes.
I don't know then.
We have a 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the motion carries. At this point in time, we will have a 5-minute recess to try to fix our IT issues. And then we shall reconvene with the meeting. Thank you very much.
Who the mayors?
Approving the consent agenda. At this point in time, we will move on to action item 5, the action items. Action item A, if the clerk would read.
Item A is a resolution introduced by Councilmember Sylvia Ortiz supporting a fundraiser at Hummer Park to benefit the Topeka Housing Trust Fund.
Councilwoman Ortiz, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
We sure can, loud and clear.
Right. Over a year ago, Jump, they came forward and they challenged us to do something with the trust fund. Since then, my colleagues and myself have put money in the trust fund. And I talked to 501, and we're going to have a free movie. The movie will be Coco at Hummer Sports Park. And it's free, but we'll ask for donations, and all donations will go into the Housing Trust Fund. And that's what this is. The date will be August the 21st at 8 p.m. And so I would ask my colleagues to support this resolution. I brought this resolution forward because, because it's a partnership with 501, I didn't want you guys to hear it and say, well, I know nothing about it. So I brought this forward asking for your support, and also so you would know what's going on. And so with that, I'd ask for approval of this resolution. I think it's very important that, and I know we put money in there, but we need a lot of money. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again and again. We just need to get the wagon rolling. And just like I can do this, other people can do things as well to do this. And so I really took heed to that challenge, and this will go forward, and we're gonna have a good time. There's plenty of space, and I appreciate their partnership. And with that, I'll stand for approval for this resolution.
Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, Councilmember Ortiz, I just wanted to make sure that everybody had the red line document. Okay, that's what Councilmember Ortiz is referring to, and just want to make sure we were voting on the right document. So.
And Councilwoman Ortiz, did you make that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Do we have a second? Councilman Emerson seconds. Comments or questions for Councilwoman Ortiz? Councilwoman Nager, to be followed by Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good to talk to you all. I did want to ask the city manager, I had asked the chief of staff and the city manager a couple weeks ago, because I did have some questions from constituents about clarifying what we had passed before as far as funding for the Housing Trust Fund, because there were two different piles of money that we ended up talking about. There was a $250,000 component, and then there was a $277,000 component. City manager, could you briefly explain that so people kind of understand which funds, where these funds are coming from, and which funds are matching funds, please?
Thank you, Councilwoman. Yes, our first $250,000 that was approved when we approved the use of surplus funds from the year 2020 was allocated as matching funds. So the expectation is that $250,000 will move into the Housing Trust Fund once there is $250,000 in private donations made to the city to match that. The second funding is money that was mentioned at the last meeting regarding NRP funds that are available, and that is $241,000 that is available from excess funds over the years. I should say it that way, funds that have been collected over the term of that program that we would ask the council to also dedicate to the Housing Trust Fund. You would have the ability to, if you wanted, also count that to be required to be matched if you desired. We will discuss that in the future when we look to approve the NRP later in the year.
Thank you very much, city manager, and thank you for correcting that. $241,000.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hiller.
I just wanted to give some kudos out to Councilwoman Ortiz for taking the initiative to not only talk about it and encourage people to get the ball rolling, but to engage the community in taking those first steps. So, thank you.
Seeing no other comments or questions, we proceed by voting.
Council members Nager,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla.
Yes.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the motion carries. We now move on to item D, if the clerk would read.
Item B is acceptance of land dedications in the final plat for Sherwood Park subdivision number 9, which is located north of Southwest 27th Street and West Southwest Legato Drive, all being within the city of Topeka, Shawnee County, Kansas.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have consideration of accepting land donations to create a new subdivision in this agenda item. Planning and Development Director Bill Finder will review the details of this request.
Good evening, governing body. As you heard, we have a plat for you to consider dedication and acceptance of easements tonight. This is Sherwood Park subdivision number 9, which is the last of the Sherwood Park phases that was started back in the 1990s. This particular phase includes 94 lots. So what has been approved would be built out over a number of years. There's about 5 phases in this particular 94 lot plat. So you're looking maybe about 20 or so lots per year. So over the course of 4 or 5 years, this could be built out. We held a neighborhood information meeting for this. The main issue that we had to address, I'll indicate here, is Southwest 26th Street that comes through Sherwood Park right now, was scheduled to continue to go through this particular phase with the input of the neighbors and looking at some of our staff comments. We asked the developer and engineer to basically cul-de-sac and dead end that street so that you didn't have the cut through traffic longer than a half mile, which is what it is right now. There was a lot of complaints with the amount of traffic right now. So we cut that, and you can see here that there is a cul-de-sac at Southwest 26. And if you want to continue to go east-west, you have to jog your way through the area. So that slows things down and creates less pressure for traffic on that collector. So that's a good thing. So with that, Planning Commission has already approved the plat, so we recommend approval of the dedications and easements tonight.
Before we proceed with discussion, we do have somebody signed up to speak on this item, and it is Jeff Blaubach.
Yes, good evening. Jeff Lawback, SBB Engineering. Just here for any questions that the council may have.
Okay. Comments or questions from the governing body? Councilman Duncan.
One comment, one question. First one is appreciate working on the traffic issue. That was a primary concern from the residents. It's already issues there with people cutting through. So thank you to the developer and the city for attempting to solve that issue, which I think this will do it. My second question is there were a couple residents who had some concerns about a water flow issue that is already a semi-problem, and they were concerned that movement in this area would push more water down and create more of a problem. Did we ever take another look at that issue and make any assessments as to whether that's a concern, or are we going to watch for that and be ready to do something if it is a concern?
Councilman Duncan, one of the conditions of this plat, and really any plat that comes through, particularly this size, is they do have to contain their flow, if you will, on the disturbed area of this plat so that it does not cause any more runoff onto an adjacent property. So there is a stormwater management plan that's approved by utilities, and they have dedicated a number of easements, detention easements, as well as some underground, I believe, chambers to handle the flow that this is causing. So it has been addressed, and the plan has been, the stormwater plan has been approved and accepted by the city.
I do have a little more info.
Thanks, Jeff.
Great.
I did look at the drainage area that was currently going there, and it is roughly 6 acres. We looked to see how much more water we could divert to the west to lessen the impact of the property owner, Mr. Marsh, and we're reducing the drainage area from 6 acres to about 2 acres. and we relayed that information back to Mr. Marsh and also included with our stormwater study. So we kind of went over and beyond of what the existing condition is to help alleviate his problem.
Great, thank you very much, appreciate that.
Additional comments or questions from the body? Councilwoman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for Bill. And it's not totally pointed at this development, but we just talked about the affordable housing study and work, and there had been an observation out of that study that we really had a need for, if you will, market rate housing, the kind of housing that's going into this subdivision. So I think it's really exciting to see this one firming up so that they can build. And I'm also seeing a lot of construction that appear to be like the infill in new subdivisions that weren't quite complete. Either today, if you can answer off the top of your head, otherwise maybe at a sometime soon. I'm interested in whether you think that we've got the kind of activity going that will meet the needs of that income or price range of housing.
Councilwoman Hiller, I don't know exactly what unit will be built or targeted for the subdivisions like this one tonight. That would be up to the builder.
Of course.
We don't know exactly what segment they're targeting. There's a couple other subdivisions that are coming online. You'll see a couple more here in another month or so. I don't think that's a higher end segment that they're targeting. So it's hard to say without talking to the developer more what because actually I think some of their plans actually change almost year to year depending on what the demand is. So that's a hard one for me to say about.
Well, I didn't ask what the price range was on this one, but if I recall correctly, the gap point or the pressure point was somewhere in like the 125 to 250 range. Is that about right?
In the study?
Uh-huh.
There is definitely a pressure point in the mid 100s. And you're not going to build a house for mid 100s. So that's going to be a lot of rehab of existing homes and upgrade of existing homes. So the new construction, you're at least into the high 200s right now at a minimum. You're probably 350 right now.
Really?
Yes. So I'm with cost. Just in talking with folks, that's just where they land from a expense standpoint, what they can get out of it. So, well, to your question about the housing study, yes, the upper end we are undersupplied in both owner-occupied and rentals for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just wondered. It seemed like there's good activity or activity beginning and moving and
There is a lot. You're seeing a lot more interest. It's just going to be a math issue. Can they make the economics work and sell those and rent those? So.
Thank you. Just wanted to check in. Thank you, Mayor.
Other comments or questions? Seeing none, what's the pleasure of the body?
Sorry. I would like to move approval.
Thank you, Councilman Duncan. Do we have a second? Councilman Emerson seconds. If there's no other comments or questions, we proceed by voting.
Councilmembers Duncan,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager.
Yes.
We have 9 yes.
9 having voted yes, the motion carries. We now move on to item C, if the clerk would read.
Item C is approval of amendment number 2 to the City of Topeka contract number 48038, a joint memorandum of agreement concerning group health care cost sharing with the labor unions for 2020 through 2022.
Is City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, we ask for consideration and approval of an amendment to our joint memorandum of agreement concerning group healthcare cost sharing with our labor unions. As discussed previously and outlined in the documentation, the amendment will create 2 new eligible activities for wellness points. An employee can receive 2 wellness points if they are vaccinated for the coronavirus, and 1 point for being vaccinated for the flu. The criteria for 2022 will cover 2023 as well. The unions have agreed to these changes, and I seek approval.
We have heard the information. Questions or comments for City Manager or the pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Hiller.
Just a brief one. That applies to 2021 as well? I mean, action in 2021 or the discount for 2022, is that correct? Where I'm going with that is whether people who already have their vaccinations, which is many of them, can count those.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Councilmember Hiller, the incentive period for the 2022 incentive is November 1st of 2020 through October 31st of 2021. So anyone that has received a COVID vaccination this year, that will count towards their 2022 wellness incentive.
That's what I was checking. Thank you.
All right. What's the pleasure of the body? Councilman Duncan.
I just want to make a clarification to the public so there's no misunderstanding. This is not mandating any vaccines that people are concerned that we want to mandate as a city. It is not penalizing anyone who doesn't get it. It does offer a way in a system in which you have many ways to get other points and other ways to get those points. It's just one more thing into the pile of the system. So feels silly making that clarification, but I want to hold off a few emails that say, you're starting to mandate something. No, we're not, and nobody's being penalized, which is why the union agreed to it. So I just thought I'd put that out in the universe.
Yes, that's correct. The system will allow other opportunities that you can reach your point total that's required to be able to qualify for the discount.
What's the pleasure of the body? Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala moves to approve. Do we have a second? Deputy Mayor Padilla seconds. Missed you, Councilwoman Nager. But if there's no other questions, we move to vote.
Councilmember Lesser?
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla?
Yes.
Councilmembers Hiller?
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala?
Yes.
Ortiz?
Yes.
Emerson?
Yes.
Padilla?
Yes.
Nager?
Yes.
Duncan?
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes.
9 have voted yes. The motion carries. We now move on to item D, if the clerk would read.
Item D is a labor agreement. Approval of a 2-year labor agreement between the City of Topeka and Water Division of AFSCME Council 61, Local 1294.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight, the water assessment contract agreement for the years 2021 and 2022 is presented for your approval. The union has approved the contract. The tentative agreement was reached between the bargaining unit and the city management at the mediation stage of impasse proceedings. The proposed agreement covers a 2-year period beginning January 1, 2021. The agreement provides for a 1-step increase each year of the contract for employees who meet the qualifications for a step. An across-the-board pay matrix increase of 0.75% for 2021 and a 1.5% for 2022 is provided, with a lump sum bonus of $250 for employees in their top step of their classification. Other changes to the existing contract were set forth in the summary provided to you, including changes to establish a time frame for notifying management of tardiness or absences and to revise eligibility requirements for severance.
We have heard the parameters of the new contract. Do we have any questions for the city manager? And if there's no, Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you. I thought we were doing 3-year contracts. How do we go to 2-year?
Councilwoman Ortiz, through the negotiation process, we ended up settling on a 2-year contract for them based on the discussions that occurred. That ended up being the term that we settled on. We do desire 3-year contracts, but in this particular situation, through the negotiations process, that was the year timeframe that was determined to be effective given the terms we were negotiating.
Well, I hope we will go back to the 3-year, because when we do the 2-year, and that's why we went to the 3-year, it just seems like we're just approving contracts after contracts after contracts. So hopefully, when we can get back on track. Thank you.
Additional comments from the governing body or questions? If there's none, what is the pleasure of the body? We have a motion for approval by Councilman Emerson, a second by Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala. There's no additional comments. We proceed by voting.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
Council Members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lester.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes.
9 having voted yes, the motion carries. We now move on to item E on the agenda. If the clerk would read.
Item E is an ordinance introduced by Councilmember Spencer Duncan, eliminating residency requirement for cereal malt beverage retail licenses and revising hours of sale for retail liquor stores and cereal malt beverage retailers, amending Topeka Municipal Code 5.55.070, 9.15.100, and 9.15.20250.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. This would do 2 things. The state legislature actually passed 17 new liquor laws. We do not have to pass something for everything they did. Some of them were as simple as cocktails to go, which will remain law, which everyone threw a party for that one. A few that we need to address, though, because they directly impact municipalities. They don't take effect in our municipality unless we take positive action. And for this one, it's 2 things. Right now, they can only open at noon on Sunday. This would allow them to open at 9 a.m. on Sundays, in line with the rest of the week. And it would also remove the county and state residency requirements, which has been something for a very long time. The state removed it essentially because federal courts, including the Supreme Court, said you can't do that anymore, really. And so whether we like it or not and wish we had it, the courts have said no more. So the effort here is to just get us in line with the current state law. This would not take effect. It still has to be published twice in the Metro News, so it has a 60-day protest period. So if anyone out there doesn't like it, they can certainly put together a petition, bring it to us, and put it on a ballot, but there's 60 days. So it does not take effect if we pass it tonight. I believe it's August 27th would be when it would kick into gear, so after those 60-day protest period. So with that, I would move approval.
Do we have a second? Second. Councilman Padilla, Deputy Mayor Padilla seconds. Additional comments or questions? This is pretty much a cleanup to make sure that we're matching the state laws. So what happens when you have an expert in the area on the body? All right. If there is no comments or questions, we proceed by voting.
Council Members Hiller,
Yes.
Valdivia Alcala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lester,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes.
9 having voted yes, the motion carries. And at this point, we move on to item F, if the clerk would read.
Item F is a charter ordinance introduced by Councilmember Spencer Duncan, repealing City of Topeka Charter Ordinance Number 61 and Charter Ordinance Number 62, which address cereal malt beverage license requirements.
Councilman Duncan.
Thank you, Mayor. This one's even simpler. It goes back, it's attached to the residency issue as it relates to the CMB. We won't get a debate into the difference between CMB and other beers. That'll take us down a rabbit hole tonight. But as most of you know, there is a difference under Kansas law, so there is some separate licensing. This fixes the residency issues with the CMB licenses. That's the short version. I would move to approve.
Do we have a second? Second by Councilman Lester. Comments or questions? We proceed by voting.
Council members Valdivia Akala,
Yes.
Ortiz,
Yes.
Emerson,
Yes.
Padilla,
Yes.
Nager,
Yes.
Duncan,
Yes.
Lesser,
Yes.
Mayor De La Isla,
Yes.
and Councilmember Heller.
Yes.
We have 9 voting yes.
Motion carries. We now move on to the non-action items. Action item A, if the clerk would read.
Item A is a discussion regarding bird scooters.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Council had requested an opportunity to have a presentation by Bird Scooters, and tonight we have Adam Davis with Bird Scooters here with us to provide some information about his company and about changes they have made to their program downtown to address some issues that have been occurring. So I'll ask Adam, there's Adam, come forward.
Do you want me to put that up there for you?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight on behalf of Bird. I've really gotten to know Topeka over the last couple of months and working with some of the city staff. One thing I'm not sure yet is cereal malt beverages, what those are, so I'll have to Google that later. But
Beer.
beer. I haven't heard that term before, but is it just a Kansas thing? But anyway, no, appreciate the opportunity to be here and discuss. We've had a lot of exciting things that have taken place since we launched just a couple months ago. Here's a few numbers here on this slide. We've had 4,500 plus unique riders that have experienced a bird, taking over 20,000 trips and equaling over 40,000 miles. I mean, if you think about what that's done by taking people out of cars, helping them get around to different parts of the downtown Topeka and across Topeka, it's really an exciting thing. And so really excited to talk about that, but then also not naive to the fact that we have had some issues. And I do want to stress that this is pretty normal anytime you launch in a new city. People get excited. They don't really have the rider habits that we would like. And so we're continually monitoring that and talking with the stakeholders here in the downtown district. Downtown Topeka has been great to work with. The city manager and Bill have been great to work with. And so we just want this council to know that we know there are issues. We're not naive to that. And we're taking action to try and address that. But it's conversations like this that really help us to tailor and be able to customize it. This isn't a one-time final action. It's going to solve everything. It's a process. We're going to continue to examine, look, see where the deficiencies are, and then we can adjust from there. And so feel free to interject at any point if you want to answer questions as we're going through the slides, but with none, I'll kind of jump over to what the action plan is and what we're looking to discuss. And so I'm sure most on this body are aware of some of the issues we face specifically in the downtown area, from vandalism being using our scooters to draw inappropriate pictures downtown, using them to do skid marks and that sort of thing. And so what we've been able to decipher by looking at the data is that this is typically happening in the later hours, and that's verified by the stakeholders downtown who didn't see it, you know, when they went to last walk their dog, and then in the morning when they went to work, it was there. And so we're able to see what those riders are doing at those hours, and we can narrow it down to who we think those problem riders are, and then shared information with the Topeka Police Department that if they wish to investigate it, due to privacy laws, we can't just turn over who we think it is. There's a process where they can subpoena, and then we're happy to share that and allow them to investigate as they see fit. But some of the steps we're looking to take is by geofencing the downtown. If you're not familiar with geofencing, it's basically an imaginary line that's created via technology. And so if you're on a scooter and you try to cross this line, whether it's a no-ride zone or if it's speed limit reduction, then as soon as you hit that, doesn't stop you right away because we don't want you going over the handlebars, but it will gradually bring you to a stop so that way you're not riding into the area. And so the first would be to limit the speeds in the downtown district. And we would take it from 15 miles an hour, and you can see on the square, the darkened area there, we would bring that down to 10 miles an hour. And we would hope that that would allow individuals to proceed in a little bit safer speed than the 15. And then also at all rides, and this could be changed as well, all rides in the district would be slowed down to 0 miles an hour, meaning a no-ride zone starting at 11 between Thursday and Saturday. We are open to whatever may help this body feel comfortable with the ridership in the downtown. We talked with the stakeholders. They felt 9:30 might be more of a compromise. I stayed downtown, and it seemed like most people were already out of the bars and restaurants by 9, so it allows the workers of those establishments to be able to use the transportation that may have gotten them there. And so 9:30, 10, whatever this body may want. And the reason we bring it as a question as well is I've gone into cities and we've put geozones in or we've done things, and we get a call from the city saying, hey, the agreements with the city, we saw you made these changes, we didn't approve them or have any feedback. And so we went ahead and made these active as of Friday just because we were seeing the issues. But if this body would like to discuss and make any changes, this is just what we're proposing, but happy to alter that in any way. So whether it's 11 between Thursday and Saturday or 9:30 every night, we're open to either of those recommendations from the city on what they would like to see. And then also no deployments in the area after 11 o'clock between Thursday and Saturday. In talking with Rhiannon and her group, we know that there's a lot of events that are taking place downtown. We can also put geofence specific events so people aren't riding amongst, whether it's tap that, which I wish I would have been here for. But if it's special events like that, then we can geofence so people aren't riding scooters throughout that. And then also looking to geofence the high skid mark areas, identify, and thanks again to the stakeholders downtown that have helped us try to figure out where these locations are. Discussed Evergy Plaza today and geofencing off Evergy Plaza so they're not riding through there and other areas. So we'll continue to work and identify those high skid mark areas. But we're really hoping that by identifying who we perceive are doing this, we've already suspended a variety of accounts. Whether we know 100% that they were them, we decided to take kind of a broad action and just limit everybody that may have, and then they can reach back out to Bird and say, hey, I saw my account suspended, I don't know why, it wasn't me, and then we can, address it from there. But we're hoping that by looking at who these riders were at the hours that we believe it could have been committed, that this may help with identifying that suspect that has been, and again, we're happy to work with Topeka PD in identifying them as well. The next is rider engagement and education. Again, suspension of the potential problem riders will increase our displays on our splash screen, which means that via the app, every time you pull it open, you'll be able to see specific messaging, whether it's don't ride on sidewalks, don't block ADA ramps, here's the speed limits, whatever we think are the top issues, and they could change. So like if we want to focus on wear a helmet this week and then speeds if another week, we can constantly change that and tweak it to what the city's desire is. But then also we've heard concerns about underage riders in the downtown Topeka area. So what we're going to do for all ride scans is that any initial ride that you use on a Bird app, you have to scan your ID to prove that you're 18. A lot of cities it's 16 but with Bird, ours is 18 because you have to enter an illegal agreement by using the app, and we don't believe a minor is able to enter that agreement. But with this, in the downtown, we're going to require that anytime you unlock a Bird in the downtown district, you have to verify via your ID. So hopefully that alleviates some parents that maybe opening up the app and allowing their kids to ride. Again, we're going to monitor all this and see if it helps, but hopefully resetting the ID verification each time will definitely limit what some of those concerned on the minor aspect. And I know that we've talked about suspension and that, and we can, but we also want to layer with incentives, being proactive and encouraging positive ridership. And as you can tell, with over 40,000 miles traveled, that there are people that are using this for the right reasons. There are a few bad apples, and I completely understand that a few bad apples can completely put a negative name to an entire program just because. I mean, it's not ideal by any means. If it was my community, I would, be upset as well. But we want to start layering with incentives, that positive parking behavior, rider behavior, that we can put money towards your next credit for the next rides. But again, If it continues, then, we're not above fines and suspensions. I'll ban everybody if it, takes getting the behavior to stop in the downtown area. But usually, if it's a minor infraction, we send an email saying, hey, here's what you did, here's steps to, rectify it. And a lot of times, they just didn't realize. I mean, if you're a scooter rider in Kansas City, it's very different rules than in Topeka. Some cities require you to ride on sidewalks, some cities ban you from sidewalks. So it's just education on each community is important, and sometimes they just don't realize that they were even in violation of an issue there. We have community mode. That is a way on the app, if somebody has it, that allows for somebody to report a problem rider or a badly parked bird or a damaged bird. They could just go on the app, put a little triangle at the bottom, and then submit what that information is. We also have a 24/7 dispatch center and an email that if there is an issue, we can have one of our logistics managers out to the area to move a badly parked bird or something like that. So we definitely want to be part of the community, and that's 24/7. And then just a quick action recap is that we're hoping that ceasing late night operations will help with the downtown Topeka area, putting responsible speed limits in, and then the minimum age requirements, and then also the zero tolerance. Hopefully, word spreads that you will be banned and your information can be investigated by the Topeka Police Department, that this will help stop that. I will say, I haven't experienced this issue in other communities. Like this is, it's disappointing to hear, but we just haven't seen that in other markets with the vandalism. Another thing in talking with the downtown stakeholders is that we can partner in putting, whether it's more signage in or putting sketches down on the sidewalk that help notify. They were saying, like if you're looking at a sign, it's up here, but you're scooting down here, that it might be more noticeable. So we're happy to partner on that. If there's a way for us to help put an infrastructure that we can explore all and any options to a degree, but happy to continue that conversation. But this is high level, happy to dive into anything a little bit deeper, but appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here tonight and then also operate here in your beloved Topeka.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Comments or questions from the governing body? Councilman Lesser.
One thing that I didn't see addressed in here that we had brought up and several of us have talked about are non-marking wheels.
Sure.
What's the possibility of having those?
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking. That's something I was going to bring up as well, is that technology isn't something we're capable of now. Our intent is to bring the latest version of our scooters to Topeka, but unfortunately right now, due to logistics and a microchip shortage that's occurring across the technology industry, we have 50,000 plus scooters that are on back order right now that we're trying to get out. With those scooters, it doesn't allow for the black marks that you would see from others. There's technologies in place, but until we get to a point where we can get them here, then we just don't have the technologies to swap out the wheels themselves.
Other questions? Councilwoman Hiller.
I'm like still looking puzzled, and they can go through exactly how that works. We sat in on a discussion today, so if you want to know more, it has to do with being able to rev it and so on, changing just how it will speed up and so on. So for some more explanation. Just wanted to give a shout out particularly to Tom Stubbs and Stephen Smith who are here. They have really been vigilant downtown. They have taken reams of photos, more than got emailed to everybody on the council. But it's been really helpful, and to thank Adam as well in terms of how well it's been received in terms of really problem solving. In the course of talking it through today, for instance, in the course of talking it through today, it brought up that maybe it's a time for a revisit as well to our overall wheels up zone. It got narrowed by the council, but the signs are still out to Jackson and Quincy. It does appear that people don't look at those signs at all, even though we can look at them and they're riding right underneath them on their bikes or their scooters or whatever. And Adam's making reference to that in terms of the fact that they would help us if we decide, for instance, that even though we didn't want to when our sidewalks were brand new, if decals on the ground would get people's attention better than ones in the air 10 feet up. They're open to conversation about those resolutions as well, and I appreciate all that you're doing, and we could turn out to be cool and safe at the same time if we keep it
I'm a
going.
little,
Councilman Lesser,
I'm a
absolutely.
little confused. I'm a little confused about the decals on the ground, what that's gonna solve. I'm a little confused with that.
So, I mean, it could be a potential solution to parts of the problem to where, again, people just don't know about sidewalk riding. And so until they see it, it's on the scooter, but as they're coming into the no-wheel zone, that they see that it's explicitly painted on the ground or etched or sketched or whatever it may be on the ground, that it just helps them to identify. And again, starts to build in that positive ridership behavior that we want to see.
So we're gonna put decals on the ground that say don't draw penises on the side. Because that's kind of what we're talking about, the issue is right here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've, can solve that through suspension and just trying to figure out who to identify those individuals are. I personally don't know why somebody would find entertainment in destructing property like that and, making people bird. I want to make it known, we do not support behavior like that, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that rider is not allowed on our platforms at any means. I mean, is a etching on the ground going to stop somebody with that mentality? Probably not. But, I mean, there's steps that we can take, and this is step one, and just putting together an action plan and hopefully.
I still don't understand the wheel. I mean, are the wheels not available that you can't change the wheels out? I guess that's the portion. I mean,
I think
I'm
just.
not a scooter expert,
Yeah.
but I know my kids and Councilman Emerson and I were talking about, had, noms.
Mike, your mic.
Yeah, it's on.
Mike, well, maybe your computer's in the way. Susie said.
Maybe you take care of Karen, I'll take care of Mike.
Susie.
I don't know where the hell I was at. What was I at?
So
You were
the
saying that
cost
the
of them.
kids had scooters that did not have
that were
wheels that
non-skid.
created skids.
I guess that's what I'm, is there a technology in these scooters that are on back order because of the microchip that require that you can't switch out a non-skid tire with the scooters that we have now?
And I talked with our R&D on that, and I think just the cost associated with putting different tires on, it just makes more sense for us to be able to put that cost towards bringing new scooters.
Now
that-
we're getting to it. The cost, that's what I'm asking. So what I'm hearing now is more of a cost issue to be able to put the non-skid tires on than a technology issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's cost and capability of getting, creating this tire that would fit on these scooters, and in the long term, that cost and creation is going to take longer probably than what we would be able to by bringing in the latest and greatest and the scooters that are out there.
Councilwoman Valdivia Alcala.
Thank you, Mayor. So can you tell me, because I'm not familiar with this process, when a scooter is driven and then the person doesn't want to ride it anymore and they can put it wherever, is there someone that comes to pick up those scooters and take them back to a central location? The reason I'm asking is that we were at 17th and Washburn, where the old coffee place used to be, right there on the corner, PT's. And so there was sidewalk right there at the intersection. So there's sidewalk that goes north and south, and then sidewalk that goes east and west. So here it is, and then here's PT's right here. And then here's the stoplight, and then it comes down a little bit. And I guess that would be for, people that have wheelchairs, motorized wheelchairs or what have you. But the two bikes were placed, and I was told by the person that was with me that they saw that these bikes were placed by someone that had a blue truck that had a whole bunch of these scooters in them, and was placed right there on the sidewalk. And that, from the way, and I saw them there, and the way that it looked to me is that if that was actually someone that was, maintaining these, that it would block a person with a wheelchair. And I don't know if that would be you guys or who's responsible for that, but I thought it was a very odd place to
Sure.
to put them.
Yeah, and utmost, we want to be ADA compliant. And we've worked with Topeka Metro, having weekly calls to just, and it's a little bit education, identifying where they can go. Obviously, if there's a ramp, that's, pretty explicit that this is ADA ramp, but we're working and constantly educating our logistics managers that that's not okay to put them there. And I think over time, we've seen that it's been improved over time.
Yeah, but I just have to say that that's a pretty basic form of education to get them to understand that, really. So, yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, additional comments or questions? Councilman Duncan to be followed by Councilman Lesser.
Question about for serious infractions and repeat violations, we may issue fines. With respect, I don't know that you can issue any sort of fines as a company. I mean, I know you can suspend, terminate, and but I know under our ordinance and in our contract, our municipal court can issue fines, but I don't know what that process would actually look like. I assume there would have to be some sort of ticket issued first for that process to be started.
Right, we'd be looking at a violation of the wheels up zone, and therefore you would issue a citation to the individual that's riding the scooter when they shouldn't be, and then they would pursue that through the municipal court.
So I guess my follow-up, which would be either the city staff or I guess the chief, we sort of know there were some instances, we sort of know the time. Are there any open cases to look into that? I mean, I actually completely respect, and I wouldn't turn over my material either without a subpoena. That's just but I mean, are we doing any active investigations into the things that have been reported that could lead to identifying any individual specifically?
He's shaking his head no. There aren't any currently in process. However, it was reiterated by the chief to the department today, again, that they need to be watching for that type of activity and address it when they see it.
So if that happens, and this is very, I guess, simplistic question maybe, if I'm walking down Kansas Avenue and I see that on the ground, does someone need to actively go file a police report? Or if we contact somebody with the city, will the police go and
Are you talking about the placement of the scooter?
No, I'm talking about the defacement of our city street.
Right. You can let
what gets us to open up an investigation into some of those instances?
I think that's exactly it. You would let us know or let Bird know specifically through their website, one of the two. And then if you let us know, we'd forward it to Bird. Otherwise, you can contact Bird directly, and then they will look at the information they have based on utilization.
Right, but at that point, Bird, respectfully, is not going to come to our municipal court and say or to our police department and say we need to do something. I mean, at some point, either a citizen or our police department or someone with the city need to say, we've got to take proactive if we want our municipal court to eventually issue an actual fine to someone.
And that's where we would have to work with Bird to figure out who the operator was in order to be able to open that type of a case as it relates to something as that.
So if you don't mind, I stopped by Topeka Police Department today, and with the help of Mr. Smith, he shared a variety of photos, and we identified the street corners that they were at. So we shared them, and then the dates of that the drawings took place. In the event that the police department would like to investigate, they have the location, they have the time frame, and then if they were to issue a subpoena to us for those dates, time frame, location, then we would turn over the rider information to be able to do an investigation.
Okay. I mean, in general, I'm supportive of this program if we can get this fixed, right? And I think in a lot of other areas of the cities, we aren't seeing this. The ridership looks like people are embracing it, but we clearly have an issue. I just want to make sure that we have the mechanisms in place to actually start the process instead of just keep saying, hey, there's vandalism, but we haven't actually started an actual legal process that we need to follow to address those. Thank you. My only other quick question was, why shut it down after 11 just Thursday through Saturday? Was there talk about just 11 p.m. period, 7 days a week?
Looking at the data and just looking at when the incidents were occurring and when the typical irresponsible rider behavior was taking place, just looking at the data, you could see it was typically on the weekends and after 11 o'clock at night. So that was just our first action item was to say, hey, let's limit it, because we don't want to overcorrect it at the same time. Like if, step one will help address it, but, shutting down the entire so just trying to figure out what those steps could be to still having a successful program, but also trying to address the issues that are arising. And
thank you.
One additional short-term thing that we're doing as well is we don't want the cleanup to be the burden of the city. So thanks to Rhiannon and her group that have helped identify a power wash company that already has agreements in place. So that way, as soon as somebody notifies and sees it, then we can call up the power wash company, have it taken care of immediately. Again, short-term, but hopefully the suspensions and all these steps will rectify it until we can get new scooters here in Topeka.
Councilman Lesser?
I too would like to see this work, honestly. I mean, I will say I've seen more activity with the scooters than I saw with the blue bikes in months than I did in years. So I do want that to happen. But I will say this, I'm sick and tired of getting these phone calls. Number one, it does bother me a little bit that the non-marking wheel issue is a cost decision on your part. What I will say is, we're either going to get this fixed or they're going to go away, and the burden is not going to go on Chief and his law enforcement. I want zero time on that. We're sitting in here and I got a text that the 13-year-old girl died last night. And if you think I want them spending 1 minute looking and doing investigations on people drawn on the pavement down at the plaza, then I think this body has different feelings of bird scooters. So keep that in mind. I want zero time of our law enforcement. And so you either get it fixed or we as a body, I think, will fix it for you. I'll be real clear on that. So that being the case, I hope it works. I hope the geofencing works. I hope you'll consider the wheel deal, the wheel, the anti-skid marks when you do a cost analysis of whether this program goes or whether it stays. I hope you will maybe look at, there's no right to privacy for these individuals, so to put a burden that our officers have to go get a subpoena to get that information, that's a choice you make. There's no right to privacy on that if they were to come to that. But that's your decision. I mean, you run a business. I get that. But make no mistake about it. If our law enforcement has to start spending time to identify these people and do that versus doing what we need to be doing, especially when they're short-staffed like this, then this will go away.
Councilman Emerson?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Davis, I appreciate you coming and responding to these concerns. I did have one question. You mentioned a couple different things. First of all, for downtown events that you could almost on an ad hoc basis set up either geofencing. I guess my first question was, what is the response time between you get a request and you're able to implement it?
I mean, it could be pretty immediate. Ideally, we're talking with some of the stakeholders about identifying, what that calendar may look like for the summer, and we can just proactively have everything lined up. But if there's something that pops up or an event, then if we just get a request for the geofence, then we can go ahead and put it in. I mean, it's simple. I can't do it. I'm not a technology guy, but we have a team that can quickly put it in.
Is it literally within a couple hours of the request? And for instance, we had a deal last year. One of our local golfers won the PGA tournament, and it was decided in a day to have a downtown event for him. Mm-hmm. Is that something where you can quickly?
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we get it right away, I mean, it could be a matter of an hour. It's going into the app and drawing a square around where you don't want the people or the scooters to go.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, is it your intent that these are the first steps you'll take and hoping this problem is solved? And if not, you're going to keep iterating this and adding additional things to lock it down? Yeah,
we'll learn and adjust as need be. So this is just steps number one, and we'll continue the open dialogue. I can't speak enough about the city staff and how responsive they've been and, reaching out and having these conversations, because we do want it to be a successful program. I mean, the mission of BIRD is to get people out of cars, sustainability in a safe, fun way. And we don't want, these individuals that are causing these to take that away from everybody. So I can, promise that I will do what we can to, resolve this, and so that, we can see a successful program in Topeka.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Heller?
We've talked a lot about downtown. You've talked about geofencing. Downtown's not the only place you have addressed. Could you discuss just a little bit more how the geofencing works and how specific you can be, and where else besides downtown you have either considered or implemented it?
Yeah. So like Gage Park in the zoo area has a geofence around it. And so with the county owning the park separate from the city, then we're in talks with them about having an agreement in place with the county as well. But is it Westridge Mall? Is that in Topeka? Westridge Mall and some others. So if there's something like the mall or something wants to be geozoned off, then we can do so as well. And so it can be very specific. There are, with GPS, I mean, you're walking down the street, you have your phone out, and you have your phone out, it says you're walking on one side and you're on the other. So it's got about 5 foot of drift. So we just have to be careful that we're putting it at the right spot so it's not drifting into the street where somebody's all of a sudden going 15, then they're going 0 and with traffic. So we just have to be very cautious with the GPS drift, but it's something that we can put in any part of the city or any blocks. Or the downtown area is just where we've received complaints.
And you've already got the parking garages covered, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
We have a question from Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you were talking about getting people out of cars and getting them safely moving around the city on a set of wheels. But I was curious, as far as accessibility for people who don't have bank accounts or don't have credit cards, is there an option for people who do have those limited financial resources to use the BIRD scooters?
Yeah. And so that's something we have new as well. It's called community pricing, where we can come into the community, we can work with different nonprofits and identifying, but there's some parameters that if somebody doesn't have a credit card or a bank account, that they can go to locations and pay cash and be able to get their BIRD credits, or work with different organizations who like to sponsor, some of those credits as well. So we do have community pricing that I'd be happy to help roll out here in Topeka.
That would be great. And so that would be identifying community partners then to work with you guys.
In education, it just doesn't have to fall upon the partners, but we can, do our education, and any amount that the city would like to participate in getting that education out, we would, jointly happy and work with that.
Excellent. And do you need a smartphone in order to engage with the scooters?
So typically, yes, but there is a workaround that I will get back to you on, if that works for you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for your presentation.
I appreciate it. And my contact information is here. Please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
You had some party music. All right, we move on to item B in the non-action item.
Item B is discussion of revenue neutral rate.
City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start this off tonight. Also let you know that both legal and finance have been working on this, along with Chief of Staff Cochran. We made a presentation a while back regarding Senate Bill 13 and the impacts that would have on our city as we move forward with our budget process. So today was really the first step as it relates to that, and that we received our revenue neutral rate notification from Shawnee County. As we've looked at that, it showed no surprise that we have all kind of been informed that our rates, our valuations have increased on many of our properties. And so we saw an overall valuation increase within the city. So now that takes into a new impact that if you, with the way the revenue neutral rate works, we end up, unless we take an affirmative action, we end up taking and receiving the same amount of revenue that we did in this year's budget to operate for next year's budget. So if we decide that we don't want to exceed the revenue neutral rate and capture the new valuation, we'll have to reduce our mill levy rate actually in order for our next rate. Because we've got increased value, we would actually reduce our mill levy rate. I will tell you though, our expenses to keep current services and staffing exceed what the revenue neutral rate would be. I will be submitting a budget that would capture the additional valuation amount. We need to do so in order to cover salaries, public safety personnel, and other personnel costs in order to keep our staffing levels where they're at and meet our other expense needs. If we do not exceed the revenue neutral rate, we'll be required to make cuts in our budget, probably to the tune of approximately $1 million at a minimum. So I'm going to go back through the calendar. It was emailed back out to you today as it relates to this. There are many steps that are involved. This really is the first step. We received our revenue neutral notification. The budget, I have seen a preliminary budget and expect, based on that information, that the governing body should receive the operating budget on or about June 23rd. We have scheduled July 6th as a budget discussion item, a very high-level discussion on that item, and then July 10th, a workshop in the morning on Saturday morning, July 10th, to go through the budget in detail. Then the decision-making comes. July 13th, the governing body will also have a budget item, but it will be an item for action, and that will be for us to consider whether to exceed revenue neutral. In order to capture the increased valuation, we must take an affirmative action to set a hearing for taking that action. If we don't, then we're forced to accept the revenue neutral rate. So that, as you see, means we have to pass a resolution on July 13th to exceed our revenue neutral rate in order to capture that additional valuation that we had for the coming year. Because we have to have that to the county clerk on July 20th expressing that we intend to have a hearing to consider exceeding the revenue neutral rate. So August 23rd, there's a notice that's sent on our intent to exceed. We have to send the notice by then to exceed the revenue neutral rate. And then looking at September 7th, the governing body meeting, have a public hearing on our budget to exceed the revenue neutral rate if that's the direction that we want to go. Looking at, we have to do that by the 20th of September. I believe, is that right? 20th September? Yeah, I'm looking over my notes here. Yes. So we're looking at September 7th as being the date that we would consider action on the budget to exceed revenue neutral. We could potentially do it on September 13th, but remember, we don't have a meeting on September 20th, and so therefore we'll need to have our budget approved by September 13th at the very latest. If there was no decision to exceed the revenue neutral rate, we would make changes and approve our budget by August 20th. We would have to have an approved budget. Any questions?
Any questions for City Manager? Again, the revenue neutral rate came as another gift from the legislature. I love how Brent just pushes his forehead saying, I cannot believe you went there. This is not us increasing mill levy, it's just capturing the automatic increase that occurs in our community. We now would have to make a vote to make sure that we accept that natural increase without increasing mill levy to our constituency. So, additional questions or comments for City Manager? Councilwoman Hiller.
I'm sorry, I'm confused. So it used to be that you had to pass a budget by August 25th. Has that changed?
It changes if you decide to exceed revenue neutral rate. They give you an extra month to make your final decision as it relates to the budget. If you decide not to exceed the revenue neutral rate, you still have that same date that we've had in the past, which is the small box option 2. You have to approve the budget by August 20th. If you decide to exceed revenue neutral, have the hearing to consider exceeding revenue neutral, then that grants you an additional month's time to consider your budget.
Do we have to take that time?
Not entirely. It's not required. It simply says pass the budget and send it to the county clerk by October 1st. So it's not required. If we get through the discussions and people feel comfortable with the budget and approve it, we can approve it in August like we normally do and send it to them. But we have to have the hearing. No, Jessica. Go ahead, Jessica.
If the governing body opts to hold the revenue neutral hearing, which we strongly recommend for a variety of housekeeping reasons, not even just the raising of the levy. If you choose to have the hearing, I believe it's the period that you can hold a revenue neutral hearing is September 10th through the 20th. Is that right? It's past
August 20th and September 20th.
Okay. So you wouldn't be, so if you choose to hold the hearing, you're not going to be able to submit a budget and approve it on August 20th because you can't hold the revenue neutral hearing until August 20th.
Good point. Thank you. So it would be between August 20th and September 20th.
For the revenue neutral hearing, yep.
So-
And that's by the
so
state law.
To answer your question, I answered incorrectly. We can't do it in early August. You would have to wait until that time frame, the 20th of August through the 20th of September. Thank you.
We could
We could
in
be
the
in
past, we
agreement.
used to start on the 1st of July, which is kind of where this one is, and bring it in for a landing by the 20th of August roughly. And I guess for me, thinking ahead for consistency year after year, if the goal was to always do that, and if you had to have a public hearing afterward, fine, get it all set up. We used to always have to vote on whether we were going to raise the mill levy also. So I'm just trying to
So unless
look
we,
for a consistent year after year time frame, even though they change the law, if we can.
From
So-
budget,
Councilman Duncan?
Right, but we're required to decide by July 20th if we are even going to consider.
I understand.
So by July 20th, we have to either pick option A or option B.
I understand.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so that decision has to be made. We don't have to actually make it, we have to at least decide if we're gonna have the hearing to.
I understand. Thanks. I'm just trying
June
to
23rd.
get my head wrapped around a rhythm.
so yeah, so,
Yeah.
can I? Is that okay? So the finance department, we started on the budget before the state law changed, which presented many challenges. But in a regular year, there's also different noticing requirements, and I'd have to confer with Brenda. But from the finance perspective, our schedule doesn't change because we have to be able to provide the governing body with sufficient information so that you guys can make an educated decision, I guess, on whether you're even going to hold a revenue neutral hearing by that July 16th date. So for us, we're still ramping up normal time frame, which is why you're going to be receiving the budget. The 23rd is next week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're gonna meet that deadline. But so that's why that we're already full speed ahead. And so what we'll be asking you to do is between June 23rd and July 16th is to review the budget and tell the city manager what options you want to take essentially. So if you choose not to hold a revenue neutral hearing, we will go back to our budget book and determine at that point what comes out in terms on the expense side, because that's where we're going to have to go. Now, if you choose as a governing body to hold a revenue neutral hearing, which is what we recommend, for outside of just the budget process, there's just housekeeping that we're all trying to figure out with a new law. But if you choose to hold the revenue neutral hearing, what that does is that it gives the public the opportunity to give comments, to hear why we would need to. That doesn't mean you have to go above it, but at some point, if you choose to hold a revenue neutral hearing, at some point you will need to say yes or no on whether you're willing to go above it. Now, if you choose not to go above it, then we will submit a budget to the county that doesn't go above it, but there will be expenditure cuts. If you choose to go above it, you as a governing body still get to decide how much you want to capture above that revenue neutral rate, how much you don't want to. I mean, the budget you approve could still be below revenue neutral, but one of the reasons we recommend it is that we don't get our final assessment roll until November, I think. And so if you choose not to go above it, you vote no, we're not going above revenue neutral, depending on how that number turns out in November, you would already have an adopted budget. We could lose an opportunity to capture property tax. It'll be small, incremental, most likely, assuming nothing big happens. But anyway, so that's the time frame, and so that's what we're there's several decision points along the way. So next week, you're going to have a budget. We will be available for discussion, be available to walk you through the different types of decisions that will likely be required if we choose not to go above it. And that way, by July 16th, you can say, we think it's valuable to hold the hearing. That doesn't mean we're going to go above it, but we think it's at least valuable to have the discussion.
Thank you.
Councilman Duncan.
Yeah, with respect, I don't understand that part of what you're saying. I mean, I'm assuming based on the comments we've heard from you and the city manager, we're probably going to get a budget that does exceed it, and we'll deal with that on the 23rd, and we'll go from there. But I mean, if we get a budget that doesn't, or we decide we're not, I see no value in confusing the public, ourselves, the process, and holding that hearing if we've decided we're not going there. I mean, we give the public multiple other opportunities to come talk to us about the budget in general and suggestions and changes, but I don't know that holding that just to hold it because we want to kind of see what it's like, I think that actually confuses our process at some point. I mean, again, that's a decision we're going to have to make in the next couple of weeks, and we'll get there, but I'll just say I don't know that we need to hold it just to hold it. That would be my perspective.
That's also recommendations from the state. They strongly encourage any taxing entity to have that hearing and schedule it, because if nothing else, it gives you more time to make the decision. The budget you're going to get is one that's going to capture that increase in the revenue by natural causes. That's the budget you're going to get, and so you're going to have the opportunity to look at that. It's also going to give you the time that to make that decision properly. But the state strongly recommends that any taxing entity that's going to have the possibility to capture it, have that hearing to make sure that you have time to make the proper decision. Because once you pass it, you can't change your mind. You can't go back.
So that one
Exactly, with respect, exactly.
So one of the reasons to have the hearing and vote affirmatively, even if you don't intend to capture it for the budget purposes, is that November number, if that changes incrementally and we as a city, we'll say accidentally, are above the revenue neutral rate, even by $5, my understanding of the state law is that we would have to pay back constituents that amount. So that if you're thinking, we have 126,000 residents, half those, let's say, are property owners, they pay taxes, I don't know the actual amount. That means we're sending a check for a penny. And that doesn't actually work out. It would be like a half a penny, but anyways, the numbers work out that even if you accidentally go above it because of the November 1st potential change in the levy, we have to pay the constituents back.
Councilwoman Heller.
We can, even with this change in the law, choose to do what we've done in the past and even say it that way and begin to educate ourselves and the public on how we communicate this. That meaning we could say we want to hold the mill levy the same.
Yes.
And like we had before, and say we don't want to increase the tax rate, but it's forcing us to say we need that increased revenue that has come from property values going up, but we're not going to ask for more than that. I mean, we can figure out if we do want to cap it, what it would be and how to say it. And it could be, we're just not going to raise taxes, but we may hold them at the same level they were last year.
As a body, you can choose to hold the rate flat, but that would require us to have a revenue neutral rate hearing and vote affirmatively to go above it.
For those who don't know, I mean, even within the last 10 years, what you had to do was declare in June, I think it was, whether you were going to raise taxes or not. Give yourselves a levying level. In the county, for instance, and the city for a while, every year would say, well, we won't go above an increase of 4 mills. And that gave you plenty of room to have the conversation, even if the intention was not to raise taxes at all. It gave room for exactly what she's talking about. people, and then the public got used to it. It didn't scare them. I thought it would really scare everybody, but they were just kind of used to it. So it's kind of a new normal.
Yeah, I believe that process was before the property tax cap.
Mm-hmm,
And then property tax cap, and then we did a little bit of a different process. We captured CPI, we captured some, what I guess the state law would now characterize as unnatural growth. They don't define that, but, so this would be different. But yeah, we could choose the governing body could choose to hold the rate flat and have that as the
And use
benchmark.
that.
Yeah, we can definitely calculate that.
Again, this is just good information for us to have. This will not come in front of the body till July 13th. So this is, you have all the way up through July 13th to get in touch with Jessica to ask all of your questions before July 13th. City manager before then, and make sure that you have all of the information that you need before then. Again, thank you for the heads up. Thank you for letting us know what we thought was going to happen, which is that valuations went up. And that again, as the gift that keeps on giving, the legislature has added another step in our budget process. Thank you so much, staff. We now move on to the public comment. We have two individuals signed up for public comment. One of them I don't see in the chambers. The first one is John Williams. Did Joe leave?
Good evening. My name is John Williams, and I live at 1190 Southwest Lane. Well, the city has gave me a citation for my fence, 6 foot tall. I talked to the guys. I said, well, you know, it's been like that for 25, 26 years. You know, it got grandfathered in. Anyway, they're going to try to charge me, $400 and $90 for a day. So I got to go to this court to see if I can get it straightened out. Hold on. I got pictures of it. I live in a very, very crime neighborhood. You know, we had like 3 murders. You know, that fence protects me and my dogs and the people. You know, I really feel sad to come above, come up talking about a fence, but really, you know, this fence been up for like 24 years. You know, and somebody got, I guess, was complaining about it. You know, and it seemed kind of silly, really. If not broke, I don't want to fix it. So I just want to kind of just get my point across.
Mr. Williams, what we're going to do is Chief of Staff Cochran will talk to you on the side, and we'll try to figure something out in which we could help you.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I just wanted to bring it to your attention, you know. I know you got lots of things to do, more important things to do, but, you know, I just want to let you know.
Thank you so much, sir. Please stay behind so that Chief of Staff Cochran can talk with you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Ledbetter is not here, but I just want for the record to indicate that he has signed up for public comment. We now move on to the announcements. We don't have a meeting, so the city clerk doesn't have things to say, but then we have city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 things tonight. Both of them are in the legal department. One announced that Catherine Walter will be retiring from the city on June 25th. Yes, as Lisa wrote in her note to me, of course, she's incredibly awesome, and she's been a big part of our legal staff for a long time, and that we are all crying elephant tears, is the way she put it. She will be missed for sure, has been an important part of our legal staff, and so we'll miss her. We do have a replacement, though, for Catherine. We are hiring an attorney. Name is Mary Kuckelman. She's been selected to fill the vacancy for Catherine's retirement. Mary will begin her duties next Monday, June 21st, so we'll have about a week overlap that she can work with Catherine as we begin her service for our city. That's all I have, Mayor.
So in an official mayoral duty, I will say, Catherine, that sucks. But welcome to our new team member. That was the official mayoral term. So a few things, not on a happy note, but it's always a really bad day when your daughter is subscribed to TPD announcements. So she gets emails to know what's happening in the community. And this morning, as we were getting ready, she let me know that there was a 2-year-old that was taken to the hospital today. And this 2-year-old has severe injuries. And then, like Councilman Lesser stated, I too have my phone because I'm always looking at emails, because typically we get either an email from a constituent or I get a text message saying, hey, you can't hear us, I can't talk. And in those emails, we receive news, very sad news, that again, gun violence. A 13-year-old passed away. It's a sad day in our community. And I am one of those individuals that has been extremely open with the fact that I am a supporter of an individual that wants to have a firearm and be safe with it, by all means. But there is a problem when we do not act responsibly with our privileges. And when we have children that are perishing to firearms in our community, it's a day for us to stop and ponder. Today at 2:15, President Nan Whaley of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, who, as you may remember, I think it was last year or year before, Nan had a big event in her community. There was an event happening and there was a mass shooting in her community. So Nan has been always a voice for gun safety. And I want to let you guys know that what's happening in Topeka, it's so bad that this afternoon at 2 o'clock, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, under her leadership, held a press conference to talk about the significant increase that we're seeing in gun violence across the country. It's not just happening in Topeka, it's happening everywhere. So to our constituents that have access to their firearms, please make sure that they're out of reach of their children. To those constituents that have a firearm because they feel like they need to be protected, there's other alternatives to deal with your problems. If you need mental health support, there's help in our community. And to those of you who already have a felony and are not supposed to have a firearm, I will tell you our police department is out there and they're looking. And you're not supposed to have one. There's a reason for that. Check in on each other. Hug your kids tonight extra tight. I know I did today. Today's a hard day in our community. On other things, congratulations to Washburn. It's been beautiful to see the work that Dean Pratt has been bringing forth in her efforts in fundraising and making sure that we now had the groundbreaking last week. I was not able to attend. I had work commitments, but there was a ribbon cutting in the middle of one of the worst storms that we've seen in a while for the new law school. In addition to that, we had ribbon cutting for the Jayhawk last week, and then we had, we were party hopping last week, man. There was a whole bunch of stuff going on. I don't know if any of you were there, but I tell you, it was really nice to get dressed up and put a dress on and go and have a nice dinner in the Vail Event Center as we celebrated our laureates from Junior Achievement. In addition to that, we had BioKansas having a golf tournament with Plug and Play right here in our community. And then after that, you had people, this awesome band that sounded like I was in a rock concert right there at the plaza. Second concert, by the way, that I've been to. This one headbanging a little bit to some pretty good songs. And then the last week, I was dancing salsa on the sidewalk. And that's happening in Topeka, too. And then last but certainly not least, we had Juneteenth, the parade on Saturday. It was a pleasure to be riding in the truck with Eugene Williams and to see how our community came out and was very supportive of the Juneteenth parade. Afterwards, it was a very hot day, but it was super cool that we had another event at Cushenberry Park right after that. That place was packed. And not only that, if you missed out on Juneteenth celebrations this week, on Saturday, there's going to be yet another opportunity for you to celebrate at Hillcrest. So just it's beautiful to see that we are celebrating our Black community and our roots of freedom. Even though that, the celebration emerged after, Texas finally happened, but still, to see that happening in our community is just very warm to my heart. So with that, Councilwoman Hiller.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Just to build on those events, it has been amazing, and I had some of those on the list, but we've got yoga on the plaza now on, I think it's Wednesday nights. What the mayor talked about was people going down to what is a weekly Eats and Beats, and they've really done quite a lineup on the music, and downtown literally rocking, and it's just so fun to see families with kids as well as people after work and all sorts of folks filling up that plaza and spreading out downtown. One of the things we've dreamed of happened, I got to be part of on Saturday night. My middle son, who lives in Kansas City, had come in to hook up with some Topeka High buddies from before, a couple that had come up from Tulsa, as well as somebody who lived here. A couple of the guys had gone to Tap That Topeka, which was sold out and just filled up downtown with people and music, but they had that end at 7. We'd gone down to the Brew Bank, which was a little thin because that big event was going on, but as it ended, the Brew Bank filled up, and it was so clear, for one thing, as just the Brew Bank experience itself, the young people from Tulsa said, "We don't have anything like this in Tulsa," and kept exclaiming about all the stuff that was going on downtown. These are kids that graduated from Topeka High shortly after 2000, coming home and discovering this town, young 30-somethings, and going, wow, this is awesome. Just like we hoped with all the efforts that have gone into the renewal. So it's pretty nice, and the plaza, again, is just now kicking in, and so they're working some bugs out of how they handle the various kinds of events. And I can report that because I did a small one, a kind of what I call a pop-up event, the word gets around. And so when I start getting phone calls from other groups that say, well, how do you do that? Then you know that the word is starting to just kind of like die in water, get around town, and you see all these various size events going on there as well. It's really cool. Regarding the gun violence, maybe it's still premature with the legislature. Something we often do is we're not passing our legislative agenda until as late as October, sometimes even December. I think our calendar says we should be doing it in August. Before the last 6 years or so, when the state took over deciding what gun control should be in our cities, we as cities had the right to set our own standards for gun control in our city. And I recall us working very, very hard with the public and the police department and the council to decide what we thought would work here. I'm not sure we'll maybe in our lifetimes change the state law or federal law, but if we could start to work on getting our legislature, who so believes in people's rights to control their own lives, one would think, to give us as cities back the right to set our own gun control, that would allow us to get started here anyway, and I would certainly encourage it. Also wanted to let everybody know that our prompt action on the Amtrak advocacy has gone over really well. I think everybody got a thank you letter from a state representative from Wichita. I've also heard from the Northern Flyer Alliance, who is thrilled, has asked for a copy of our resolution and letter and wants to put it up on their website. They're counting who all we sent it to, and the city clerk's office says they sent it out to 100 elected officials. So it's just generating a lot of excitement. People are coming in from Kansas City in 2 weeks just to visit, and just really pleased to see that Topeka's on board with it. So good job, everybody, on that. And last, just a shout out to Neil Dobler. Miss having him tonight. He's got some personal stuff going on, and I hope it's going well. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to give a shout out to Jim Parrish. Have worked with him for years, probably going back to at least the early 2000s when I served on the Fiesta Committee, and he was always so gracious, so kind, and proactive in working with the Fiesta Committee back then for the number of after-hour events after Fiesta was over to get people over to his hotel, the Ramada Inn, and for bands to play. And Jim was just wonderful to work with in that capacity, and always what can we do to help make this better. Additionally, with the small nonprofit I run, the Done Unseen Society, was always very blunt with Jim in that we usually had very little money. Everything went into programming, and we had any number of artists and writers and poets and, cartoonists come in from areas of the Southwest, and Jim's and his staff were always gracious with giving us the best deal, with providing the best service. And I just don't think, even though it was wonderful to hear all the comments, I think that you would have to know Jim to understand just how deeply committed he has been to the Topeka community. So kudos to him for that. Also, as a mother, as a grandmother, as a Thea, as an aunt, these shootings that we continue to see are just so egregious and horrific. Because now it feels like, again, like the mayor was saying, not only on the local level here, but on the national level, you are seeing more children being killed in the mass shootings that appear to just be flaming up across the country. And it is, it's beyond horrific to try to wrap your mind around it. And so I would just say, implore you to think before you act. Be careful with your weapons. Why would you even want them around children is beyond me. And now these parents and the grandparents and the siblings are suffering so incredibly. And so I pray for these children that have crossed over, the ones, that may have been injured and maimed, for their healing, and that we just figure it out, because it does seem like we're having an explosion of some type. It just feels like something is so off within our country. And just wanted to give a shout out to Sherry Thomas and all the people that planned the Juneteenth parade. My husband and I and other volunteers walked the entire event, so I got my steps in for the day, so I didn't have to do the treadmill. And so I heard this one guy with his hat on yelling at me, and I was looking, I was like, who is that? Who is that? And there it was, old city manager sitting on a curb.
Incognito.
Yeah, with his hat on, and his wife. And then right before that, there was like some Mexican guy just like, like waving, and it ended up being Mike Padilla and his wife. As we were like sweating with our little, carrying our stuff. But it was just so wonderful and honored to be the only Latinx, Chicano indigenous organization to be invited to be a part of that. So we appreciate it deeply. And there's still a lot of events going on this week. So thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say ditto to all of that. I do want to acknowledge that our police chief, he did about a week ago, put out that announcement for gun owners to make sure that they're locked up when all the kids got out of school. So I was very appreciative of that. There's just a lot of people that really just don't think about what they're doing until it's too late. So my prayers go out to the family. I have a couple of things to announce. Gibbs Elite Academy Basketball Camp is partnering with Topeka Public Schools, USD 501. They're offering a free basketball camp to boys and girls grades 5th through 8th grade. I have emailed everybody. You can register on Facebook by going to Topeka Public Schools Facebook page or go to Tanai Gibbs' Facebook page. There's 150 slots. Again, it's free. This is a great opportunity for our youth to come out and get some basketball skills. We will have our very own Crystal Kemp. She played at Topeka High, Mr. Emerson, in case you didn't know that. She was a standout at Topeka High, and then she went on to KU. So she will be there along with Chris Lofton. He will, the appearance will by him. He's a family friend, and he has agreed to come in. So all of this is free by sponsors. The coaches are free. Everything is free, and this is just another 501 partnership for our youth. There will be also people that are giving their time. We will have a psychiatrist that will come in and talk about anxiety, depression, and they'll have trainers and they'll have coaches. So they'll get a lot of time, and then our police department will be there to mingle with the kids and talk with them as well. So it's more than just basketball. It's a life skill that we're trying to give them. And that's what we need to do. We need to work on our youth. We need to work on our youth that are coming out of middle school, that are at that age where they're questioning and they're just wondering where they're to go or who they're to be. And then we also need to mentor our young people. And when I say young people, I'm getting old, so about in their 40s. I want to shout out to Chris Ware, who really was a driver behind the Juneteenth parade and got out there and kept encouraging people and inviting people. And it was really a nice little parade. What I saw of it, I'm still battling with poison ivy in my eyes, but I thought it was a great turnout. I also wanted to encourage everybody to support our mom and pop shops on Southeast 6th Street. They're suffering. I'm going to start at 6th and Branner and go all the way east. You have Price Package down there, Harold's Tire Shop, Styles Barber Shop, Taco El Sol, Mike's Frame Shop, Lola's Cafe. All of our Mexican restaurants are down there. They're making fresh tortillas, but they're struggling because we have a lot of construction down there. So we need to make sure that they're still open, but we need to, and we can go through the detour, but we need to make sure that we go down there and we still support them because they're in desperate need of that right now. Because, one of the businesses, he was thinking about shutting his doors down because there's just been no activity. So I wanted to mention that. Let's just remember that and try to go down there and support them. I think Mr. Henderson has a tab at Taco El Sol, so you can put it on his tab and he'll pay it at the end of the month. Also, I want to talk about, I have received a call today from a gentleman that was shook up. I've mentioned this before, but I wanted to bring this out again. I wanted the record to reflect this. When you start at 10th and California, we don't have any sidewalks all the way. We're going to go south until I-70, and there's no sidewalks. And there's people that are continuously walking. I thought that was in the sidewalk plan. I was told it wasn't, but we need to find some money to put in there. We've been asking for years to pull these people out of the street that walk in the ditches there. A gentleman today got shook up because a bus almost hit another guy that was walking in the street. There's a lot of people that walk. They walk to get to Walmart. Everybody doesn't take the bus. So I just wanted to see what we can do before we do have an issue there. And let us look on each side of the cemeteries or whatever. So I hope everybody will continue to join the Juneteenth festivities. There's a lot of meaning behind Juneteenth, and it is great to see everyone come out and participate in it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Emerson, horchata, and tacos with chicken.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, we might have to extend the meeting here past 10, given the length of time that Councilwoman Ortiz took with her announcements. I will tell Councilwoman Ortiz that I know there is a sidewalk. I don't know if it's in this year's or next year, but yeah, so this year I believe they are constructing your sidewalk there, and that is well needed in there. Just like there's also one needed on Adams Street between 37th and 45th. But I agree that that's badly needed, and I believe staff is doing that this year. And I will thank you as I go pay my large tab at Tacos El Sol. I'll think of you. So that's it. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on what Councilmember Ortiz was talking about with regards to Juneteenth, this coming Wednesday, the 16th, I think we all got some notice of that, at 3 o'clock. It's a Zoom program. That's about an hour or so. It gives a lot of history, and there's going to be some speakers making presentations about Juneteenth and its significance to not just the Black community, but to the country as well. So if anybody's interested in getting a little bit of education about Juneteenth, I would encourage them to take a look at that. I'll share that information on my website, but I think the city has that available through a link. So Juneteenth program on the 16th. I just want to thank everybody for their expression of, I guess, concern and empathy for the citizens in our community that are suffering from the results of gun violence. And I ask that people really give themselves a check. You know, I think that we can do a lot about talking about what the police can do and this ordinance or that ordinance or this statute, but it's really about our own community and what we want to accept as a level of quality of life in our community. It's important for us to look out for each other. When we see something happening, these things, like the shootings that most recently, while they are specific to families, I don't think they happen in a vacuum. I think people see some of these things happening. They know the conditions some of these families are living in and what they're going through. And we need to take it upon ourselves to help them find a better life so that they don't put themselves and endanger children that way we have seen. I know that there are a lot of support groups out there, churches, youth groups that see violence and wonder how we got where we are now. And I think it comes down to whether or not we're willing to accept that type of lifestyle in this community. And we need to help people find those resources that bring them to a point where there's no need to keep those guns in a place where children can just happen upon them or somebody can take advantage of a situation and hurt someone else. That's what I feel in my heart, that it's what we decide we want to live with. And so I'm asking the community to really think hard about what's happening to your neighbor and your fellow citizens here in Topeka, and look hard and deep on how we can address these problems, not just through ordinances, but through actions that we take on our own selves. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Nager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, with the brief recess that we had because of technical difficulties, I really expanded upon my yes and my no, which I didn't get to use. And so there are a lot of links and stuff that I wanted to share with people, so I decided to just write them. I wanted to let everybody know that June 18th through 26th, it is Topeka Music Week. It is leading up to the Country Stampede, and there's going to be stuff happening all across the city. So if you go to Visit Topeka, their website is Visit Topeka Partnership
.com. You can see I got out of space, but /stampede/Topeka-music-week. There are a ton of events going on from June 18th to 26th. I know everybody was already talking about all of the other events. There's more to come. So make sure you're checking that out. For all those other fellow Topeka High grads who are 30-something and you're in Topeka. Another thing that's happening in District 6, Josie's Baking Company does a great job with their cakes and kolaches. I believe it's the second Saturday of every month, but I know that I had some Oklahoma friends. They are from Oklahoma City, so a little bit different. But they came up and they got to take part of that. Well, on Wednesday through Saturday from 5 to 9, the former head chef at the Weather Room offers Moroccan food, and it is so good. It's named Tagine, and the address is 3121 Southwest Huntoon, but it's at Huntoon and Oakley. It is so good. Josie's is good too, but more people know about Josie's. They should also know about Tagine. Next one. This is just for you, Henderson. Topeka High is turning 150 years old this year.
Think getting better.
For more information about how to get involved, you can go to TopekaHigh150.com, or you can email the Historical Society at thshs2001@yahoo.com. It got really small there for me too, but as a proud Trojan and having the Trojan teacher painting team come to my house tomorrow, I'm really, really stoked to celebrate my alma mater. And a final thank you to all of the wonderful men in our lives, all of the fathers, all the grandfathers, all the uncles, all the father figures. Happy, happy Father's Day. And for those of you who need to get something, Herman's is still open. Go over there and get a gift card. There's plenty of businesses downtown, but Herman's would be a really good place. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And by the way, take notes, everybody, with the color and show display that Councilwoman Nager has put together. This is awesome. Councilman Duncan, try to follow that one.
I'm bringing a whiteboard next month. That's all I got. No, I have a couple quick things, Mayor. Thank you. First, I was able to attend the Washburn Law groundbreaking. That's obviously an important institution for this community. And I know that's a long time in the work, so I'm glad that they were able to finally dig that dirt. Yeah, they moved it inside. My only disappointment with the whole affair was no one told a single lawyer joke. I'm not sure how, I mean, come on, folks. At least one to keep things moving. Second thing is, and I know I'm going to disappoint thousands of District 8 residents who are planning to attend on Thursday, but traditionally I do a third Thursday. I cannot attend it and hold it this Thursday. I will actually be in Wichita at an event where they're going to be talking about possible legislation that would impact our city at some point, maybe. So I want to be in on that and hear what they have to say and gather intel to help citizens a different way. But I will be back on the first Saturday of July 3rd. So don't worry. All of you can flock to me on that Saturday. That's right. The last thing is I want to give a shout out to a resident. Some of you may know him or not. His name's Ray Bloxham. He lives in downtown. And a few days ago, Ray was looking out and he realized that some of the planters along 8th Street didn't look as spiffy as they should with the rain, and we just, as a staff, just hadn't gotten to them yet because things happen. And so he went out and he weeded them all himself, and he took care of it. And then he did call city staff, and I have no idea who she is. I believe her name is Rihanna. I believe she's in street maintenance. I may have pronounced it wrong. We need to find her and give her kudos, because Rhea then called her and said, here's the issue. I've done the weeding, but we need some mulch. And I think by 5 o'clock that day, she had sent staff out there. They had got them all cleaned up, added the mulch, and done whatever else. And so it's one of, I think, many examples that often happen in the city where one resident saw something and got the ball rolling, contacted staff, and they did what they could as quick as they could to address something, and now everybody's good, and 8th Street looks nice again. So I just wanted to thank both Ray and hopefully Rihanna. I think that was her name. I don't know. I have no idea who you are, but if you're out there, we'll find you. And I want to say thank you to the staff, too. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Take us home, Councilman Lesser.
Couple quick things. As all of you know, we get lots of calls from time to time. I wanted to just take the opportunity to say thank you. I won't go into too much detail, but thank you to James Jackson for helping and Bill Cochran for helping work on an issue we have on a 10th Street property. Thanks to City Manager Trout, who's helping on another similar type issue we have on Grand Court. And then to Braxton, we had a issue Braxton has been helping on in regards to one of the properties that we took over last week. We have some dead trees that are actually in there that could probably lead to some flooding. And so Braxton went over and met with the neighbors and took care of that. And then finally, I want to say thank you to my colleague, Christina. Christina called me. She had got notice of a family that, to make a long story short, one of our out-of-state landlords is not taking care of business the way he should, and it was almost 90 in their house and not fixing the air conditioning and stuff. And so between the two of us, I think that we hopefully have a solution hopefully soon for them. So it was in my district. She'd gotten aware of it, and so her and I have been working together. So thank you for that. And that's all I have.
Well, before I adjourn, I will be remiss if I do not wish all the fathers, and especially the men who take the time to be a father, even if they were not fathers biologically, a wonderful, happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to George Salahar, my daddy, and to my other dad, Walt Menninger. I love you both. And to all of you guys on the council and on the staff, thank you for being good dads. You guys matter. This meeting is adjourned.